So listens actively. Definition: focuses on what the client is and is not saying, to fully understand what is being communicated in the context of the client systems, and to support client self-expression.
Yeah.
I have a feeling as we move through the sub competencies, all of that will be clarified. If we need to come back, I think at the end and clarify anything, I think we should. But I think in the interest of getting through number 6 here, let's move on to our first sub competency. Considers the client's context, identity, environment, experiences, values, and beliefs to enhance understanding of what the client is communicating. All right, I'm going to hand it over to you guys.
This is precisely why giving advice only works in the short term, but not the long term. Because as coaches, I'm speaking as once upon a time, I was a coach that thought I was going to hybridize consulting and coaching. You can give all the advice in the world, but if you don't understand who the client is for their personalities, their dispositions, the environment that they've grown up in and the environment that they are currently in, then you're only giving short-term fixes, but you're not meeting them for the totality of who they are. In essence, you are personifying them as either they have a problem or they have a solution to the problem. That's the only thing that you're seeing there. So when they're speaking, don't speak, so you don't listen. So you think to yourself, all right, what question can I ask to give a solution? But who is this person in front of me? Who is this whole, complete individual in front of me? What makes up everything that they are? And how are they adding to their goal or adding to their issue because of all of that?
I think you kind of started off with it's the who of the client, and that becomes really important as we go through the different phases of coaching, that who they are, and they have value, they matter, they have a voice, and we don't get to take over their expression of that.
I think it's also in our space of being curious and in our space of wanting to learn more about our clients and help facilitate their growth, or partner with them to facilitate their growth. We have to consider everything we have learned and know about our client, not just our experience, but actually we have to consider all of the breadth and width of what our client has told us about themselves, their experience, what they have shared prior to, and look at them as a whole human being, as best we can, and consider that when we're in our sessions with our clients. To not do so, I think, takes a perspective that could be much more in depth and much more allow for a lot more understanding, and having your client feel like, man, my coach gets me. My coach, you know what I mean? But if we treat them like they're exactly the same, everybody's the same, and we're asking, I sort of think of it as like 2D questions, like, you know what I mean? When we should be seeing our client in 3D or 4D or whatever it may be. And that means that we have to consider the whole client and everything that they're, and everywhere and everything they are and where they're coming from when we are communicating with them. There's not a one size fits all in coaching, right?
In a roundabout way, this kind of takes us back to 101, the exercise with the sunglasses. You know, we're paying attention to the whole person and not the problem, and we're also not making assumptions. Yes, they're. Oh, I thought you were going to put on real sunglasses.
I don't have them. Sorry.
Oh, I know. This Restream doesn't have the same filters. It's so annoying. In any event, I think that allowing a person to be in the room as their whole self, and not expecting them to be anything other than who they are, because we're uncomfortable or we need to be comfortable. that also can really support a client in appreciating themselves.
I think that we covered that pretty well. I think we can move forward to our second one, already touched on by Lisa just moments ago. So reflects or summarizes what the client communicated to ensure clarity and understanding. So already scratched the surface here. Let's go a little deeper. Anybody?
Sometimes the client will hear their words back and they'll say, yeah, I said that, but I actually don't mean that, just because they heard it come from someone else's mouth. So this part is so vital.
Well, because it can change the whole dynamic of what they're intending. It gives them a whole different perspective to recognize what it is that they're actually saying and how it sounds. And if they're even in role play behavior with you, where they're practicing on something they're going to say to somebody else, they get to hear it back in a way that they can adjust it, and they're already in a safe space to recognize how they want and what those, it's about boundaries in that space, what they want their boundaries to be. So it's a real working process that is really a wonderful place to allow that client to get into even just hearing what they're saying to clarify as well.
I think.
Oh, and
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I had a client when I reflected back, they looked at me, they paused, they're like, I said that. I'm like, yeah, you did. They said, that sounds good. I was like, yes. Like, so I think there's the one piece that Jen was talking about where that's what I said, but that's not what I meant. As opposed to, oh, that I like that. That's catchy.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. It's like an opportunity to empower, right?
I think too, a lot of times we don't listen to what we have comes out of our mouths, right? We're just speaking without thinking a lot of times. And so when we take that pause with them, reflect it back, it can provide clarity. I also think there's a second piece to this that we don't want to forget about. And that's, we can't assume that we understand the definitions of what our client is saying. So if when there's a funny example. We had a friend recently that thought of the word homely as a compliment towards women. As a woman, I would never think that word was a compliment. But to this person, they thought, well, it means like I want to go home to them. Like it feels like a sense of home. But so that was a totally different definition for that person than it was for me, right? So when it says clarity and understanding, that can also be for clarity and understanding for us as a coach, not just for our client, and making sure that we are on the same page as them.
I'm going to snitch on myself right now. This is me not doing core competency number 5, subdomain 4 very well right now. That reaction I just had, hearing that, just this right here. So check yourselves, coaches. It's a good thing I'm not in a coaching session right now. So
Can you say more, Sam? Because I don't know that I saw it.
well, I wouldn't use that word to describe anyone. So I'm like,
oh, the homely.
correct. I'm just
Okay. I didn't know where you had gone back to. I get it. Okay.
yeah. Okay, I'm gonna check in with my emotions and shut up now.
As always, for every one of us, it is a work in progress all the time. Okay.
I think we can safely move forward to our next one, having covered that one. Number 3, recognizes and inquires when there is more to what the client is communicating.
So that's the piece that's the unspoken, not just the spoken, but there's pieces that they are in that assumption space that they already know. Sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes it's the next step towards. And, this is where that instinct and intuition come in to be able to ask those questions into that deeper level of what it is that they on surface are saying, and then to bring it down deeper What is it that they're not saying?
This is I think too is something that that we develop through practice, and through building rapport and getting to know our clients. So day one, we're probably aren't going to be as competent with making recognizing these what they're not saying as well as we will when we've had 5 or 6 sessions with our client, and then we're starting to get to know them. And then even as a coach, I think of even in my design career, and also even in Pilates, and especially in Pilates. When I first started Pilates, I had all this training on noticing like how bodies move and everything, but I truthfully had no idea because I hadn't learned it in my own body and in my own self. So once I did and learned it, started teaching it, I could then recognize more easily when people were moving in ways that were, weird or what have you. But when I first started, that wasn't possible because it was a skill I had to develop, and I had to develop. It was, and I think as a coach, it's a similar thing where when we're starting out, we're probably going to be worrying about a lot of other things. But when we get settled and more comfortable in making these observations, this will come more fluidly and naturally, and that you'll learn to trust that intuition and instinct much, much more easily than when we first begin.
Yeah,
this
to
is
that,
one of those skills that come.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, didn't
Sam, do
mean
you
to
have something
interrupt.
here?
Yeah.
Wait, can I go?
Okay.
Who's going?
Jen, you can go. Jen, you can go ahead, yo.
So this is where I usually will ask, does their language match their nonverbal cues, body language, tone of voice, micro expression, all the above? And if, I have a good relationship with the client and I notice that there's a mismatch, always I'm going to, like Dan says, call it to the room. I noticed that when you said that, you kind of tilted your head down a little bit. What was that? It's as simple as that. And it gives the client then the opportunity to either recognize, oh, there is a mismatch, or wait, yeah, I want to say it with more confidence. You're right. And then they'll reframe it because now they're kind of realizing that, that they were mismatched.
Yeah, it's listening for, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Same words, 2 different energies that are in the room. I think one thing that I had to learn here, and in some client cases I'm still learning, is not to carry what I've learned about one client to another. Because if someone's got a high energy when they move from what session start to session finish, and another client doesn't necessarily do the same thing, that doesn't mean that there's a mismatch of their energy. Some clients are very much level with their energy. Not saying that's good, not saying that's bad. That's just who they are. Coming back to, again, allowing for the fullness of that client to come into the room. But don't profile your clients is what I am saying in that moment.
So it's still going back to what Brooke was speaking about, that curiosity piece. It's staying in curiosity and not allowing your overthinking brain to take over and think it knows. Get the definition of things, get the curiosity for the client's benefit, and grow with the session. What were you going to say, Brooke?
And coming back to being comfortable with not knowing, being we may make this observation and verbalize it to our client. We have to be comfortable with being completely wrong, or being, what I mean? We have to be okay with that. And that's okay, right? We just are making an observation, and we may be right, we may be wrong, and we got to be okay with that. So when we make those observations, let's move forward to number 4, shall we? I think we're on number 4. Yeah, 4. Okay, we have this one and 2 more, and then we've made it. So notices, acknowledges, and explores the client's emotions, energy shifts, nonverbal cues, or other behaviors. Very kind of in the same vein of what we were just speaking of, but maybe a little bit deeper. That acknowledges piece and explores piece, which we kind of started to touch on. Anything else we want to share in this space? I'm opening up the floor.
I think as you're beginning as a coach, to not to not worry about everything, every one of these competencies. You know, the more you practice, the more you grow with the profession. All of these different nuances become innate and part of what's going on and your recognition, because you care about what you're doing. You care to grow and learn more. So if on day one of your coaching session, you forgot to even look at the client, then that's the next growing piece, right? You start having the ability to not get in your head, and you focus in on, like what Jen was speaking earlier about, noticing the different shifts, noticing, you know, how they behave, and you get to know the client through a lot of body language. Even on screens, we can see body language that we can ask into if necessary. I don't ask into every body language I see, but I do pay attention to it. I used to take notes. I don't need to take notes as much anymore. Know who you are and what works best for you to help you remember those different nuances as necessary.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that because prior to obviously COVID, pandemic, things shutting down, most people were doing this kind of work in person. And for a lot of people, when they made the shift to virtual, it was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to tell what the client's emotions are? Or how am I going to read those nonverbal cues? And I have found it to be very powerful, even on the teleconferencing, Zoom, et cetera, that you can, you can see a lot in body language, in tone, change of the way someone goes up with their inflection, right? Their intonation. So I think that it's not doubting that process, but we're not going to see everything. And that's okay, because we're not meant to see everything. Like our clients are not meant to be covering every single topic of their life in one session. So we get to pinpoint what we notice. I had a session on Monday and something happened with my client. I said, what was that? I didn't even have to use the word shift. I just got to ask, what was that? And my client was able to say, yeah, I felt it like through my shoulders and my gut. And I'm like, tell me more. Right. So being able to just be present and acknowledge that I saw something, but then she could have said, what was what? I thought we had an earthquake. No, I'm just kidding. So it could be anything. But I think that just being willing to notice and bring it out. And then what you mentioned earlier, one of you, not being attached to the outcome, right? Not being okay with, no, that wasn't anything. I just had a twitch or whatever. Right. So
for those
and also,
watching,
oh yeah, go ahead, Sam.
I was going to say, for those watching, I hope y'all notice how simple those questions Misha just asked were. So I know this is going to be a little bit off topic here, but you don't have to have a whole dissertation's worth of questions. You don't have to have a whole paragraph's worth of questions. You don't have to have the best crafted sentence in the world. It could be as simple as, what was that?
Yep.
Beautiful. Just chef's kiss. I can never do the hand motion though, so I'll stop. There we go. Yeah.
I truly believe that these simplest questions are the most powerful. In my coaching, they have been.
So, and then I also just, before we move on to the next one, which we will do after this, don't assume also that every person is the same and every person's going to react the same way, or there's some rule of thumb, everybody when they're thinking looks up and to the left, or everybody. So it's not true across the board, and can vary greatly for a number of reasons. So just wanted to share that. Yes.
So I wanted to also add to this, Jen was saying about the questions, and definitely support what you said, Brooke. Don't assume just because of a book that everyone's going to be that way. But where Jen was going about questions, you don't need to set up a question. You don't need to qualify. I was guilty, totally guilty. Qualify your question to ask your question. Mm-hmm. Just ask your question. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Let's move forward. We have 2 topics left and only a little more
time.
Wait,
it was called to my attention. I didn't welcome somebody. Hello, JDP. Welcome, welcome. Okay, now you can go on.
All right. Number 5, integrates the client's words, tone of voice, and body language to determine the full meaning of what is being communicated. Tell me what that means, folks.
When I look at this one, I focus on just using their words or sticking to their words as much as possible. That way I understand where they are coming from. In fact, I don't paraphrase or use words like, if they say infuriated, and say, oh, it sounds like you are mad, integrating the client's words. It's like, dude, taking the wind out of their sails, taking the air out of their balloon, if you will, integrating their tone of voice. If they're at a level, I'm not going to be at a super high level, or super, super low with them. I'm more or less matching their energy as much as I can without really parroting or mimicking them. But that's just another area of connecting with them for their words and their tonality and body language, being there, engaging.
I think this is reflective again, though, right? This is that, going back to that reflective. Sorry, Misha, space where if our client says, I'm doing great, I can respond to them, "You're doing great, are you?" And let them take it from there without having to point out, well, you look like you're making sad. You may look like you're, I didn't have to tell them what I was observing. I just mirrored it back to them, and then I sit there and see where they run with it. It can be that simple, and so, and that can provide some clarity, right? Immediately.
And the thing I want to bring attention to is Brooke definitely has personality. Would we all agree she has great personality?
Oh, heck yeah.
She gets to bring that to coaching. You're not a robot. You're not a robot in coaching. You're not just staying stoic in coaching. You get to show up. You get to participate because you are partnering with your client. They get to know you. While we're not judging them, we're not, telling them what to do. We're not doing any of those things. But my personality will show up in a session just as much as it should.
Can I just say? Oh, no. Go ahead.
Steve said, yeah, Brooke is doors.
Jen, go ahead, take it away.
I use this one when my client curses freely. I will adapt to that. Now, not like overkill, but I will mirror that. And if my client does not curse, I will not curse. I always mirror my client with that language. I don't know what you guys do, but that one is like a big one for me, is I completely let the client guide me in that aspect. Because I'm comfortable either way.
Speaking of, and I think this is something that came up in 101, the talk about personality. And I think we've all, I'll give Brooke even more of her flowers here. Yes, Brooke, you have amazing personality. I hope this is an encouragement, because in 101s, it's been asked, how much of your personality do you put into coaching? You put all of your personality into coaching. Now, granted, as you get to know your client and as you build relationships, you know what the quote unquote appropriate level of your personality is. It's almost like the different settings on a garden hose, like a garden sprinkler. You can turn it one way and it's the shower, one way it's the mist, one way it's that straight line, that straight mist that really hurts a touch, that straight stream that could very well be a weapon, if you will. But you're putting all of you. So you don't have to Lisa's point, you don't have to say, hello, my name is life coach, insert first name, insert last name. I hold this credential with the ICF. Today we are doing life coaching. Tell me, client, what would you like to work on today? No, don't do it. Yes, the jet stream. There we go, Sue. And I'm done.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people kind of feel like if they have to take their whole personality out of it. And so what's left of me? And we're not saying to take your personality out of it. We're saying take your advice out of it. We're saying take your encouraging and people are like, but that's part of my personality. Well, then we find a different way to bring that in. So it's not that you don't have to have your personality. You get to bring your special sauce. What's that?
So that's behavior.
Right. That's behavior. Exactly. So you get to, from what we're talking like from 101, we're teaching you go learn and the structure and the platform, the format. And we're like, yeah, you kind of have to follow this script, but then you get into 102 and it's like, guess what? There's a little more flexibility now, exactly. You're not going to do the striptease or anything, but you're definitely going to bring more of your special sauce to the script. I really like surprising Sam. I said, you're not going to do a striptease.
So an authentic personality.
What?
Look at Misha, how authentic is she in this space, right? She's authentic. We get to have our authentic personalities in our spaces. What we don't get to do is put our behaviors onto our clients.
Yeah. Much better said. More succinct, I would say.
All right, let's move forward. We've got one more competency to go. And then we are all wrapped up for our core competencies videos for today. Oh my goodness, we're almost there, you guys. Notices trends in the client's behaviors and emotions across sessions to discern themes and patterns. I think we kind of touched on this. Like I said, all of these things will become more clear from day or session 1 to session 6, and even from your first day coaching to your 1000th day coaching.
But
Misha,
I want to talk to you. Yes. Okay. So I had a client for a year and then came back to me after a break. And it was really cool because I remembered what we talked about. But that was the one cool thing. But the second piece was they were telling me about their experience in the current moment. And I asked them, I said, we did a lot of work together in that first year around, I'm not going to give content because I don't know who's watching and who knows who, but I specified something that was a real challenge for them at the beginning of our year of coaching. And so I asked them, based on what you're sharing with me now, this is what's coming up for me, what you told me, ABC. And they're like, oh, wow. Yeah, this is a pattern. I didn't have to use the word pattern. Mm-hmm. They used the word pattern. And it was really amazing because what they felt was, one, I saw them, I heard them, and I reflected back something that observations that helped them identify, okay, I'm walking into that pattern. So it's just, that's what we do. Yes.
I want to add to that, though. You weren't working in the history of that pattern.
Correct.
You were acknowledging its existence based on the today's experience.
Yes. And I asked the client to tell me what are they feeling about, what connection can they make between what we were working on before and where they are today. And that's when they said, this is a pattern. Yep. So yeah, it's really cool.
Anything else in this space? Have we done it? We have managed to go through core competencies numbers 5 and 6. Wow. Yeah. 102 students, you know what to do. You have homework. All of the rest of you guys watching, thank you so much for tuning in and joining us next week. Next Tuesday at 4 p.m. We'll be back to complete our core competency series. So we will be discussing numbers 7 and 8 next week. We would love to see you there. Please return and visit us. In the meantime, make sure you subscribe, like, and share this video to anybody that you think would find it informative or helpful. And please subscribe to our channel, like our videos. We appreciate you. And check out the Certified Life Coach Institute. Misha?
I was just going to say, alumni, check your emails. Things are changing. Good things are happening, but things are changing. Check your emails.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much out there to everybody out there watching. We appreciate you. And we'll see you next week. Yeah.
Bye everyone.